to Queers and Soaps. I am your host, Aaron, and yes, we were missing Tommy, but sorry he couldn't be here, but we're going to go ahead and talk about a fabulous show with my co-host John and husband. Hello, John.
Hi.
Hi. Now, we are going to talk about So Notorious. So let's roll the credits and then we'll get to talking. So, I watched So Notorious when it first came out, the first time around 2006. Did you happen to catch it?
No.
No. But are you a Tori Spelling fan?
I like 90210.
Really? Well, looky there. I'm a little shocked. I did not know you liked that show. Interesting. Interesting. So, well, one of the things I like about this is So Notorious is that it showed Tori Spelling's comedy skills. I've always thought she's really funny. Scary Movie 2 or Scary Movie 2, she was hilarious in it. Especially that scene in the bedroom with the ghost. We'll just check it out if you haven't seen it. That's a really funny scene. Because then she doesn't stalk the ghost in it. Yeah, so that's pretty hilarious. But this show is loosely based on her life. We don't know what parts are true or which parts are kind of a heightened fiction. That's kind of led for the audience to decide for themselves. But what did you think of the show?
It was okay.
It was okay? What made it okay?
Well, speaking of her being in Scary Movie 2, I kind of saw, well, because I'd never seen this till you played it. So I kind of saw the same sense of humor that was in Scary Movie 2 in this, at least from her. But as far as what made it just okay, the other people that were in the show, because she had a handful of names, it's like everybody but her was out of their element.
Okay.
Because she was funny.
Now, are you talking about her group of friends or her mom and the nanny?
Any and all of it. Well, I don't know who the nanny was, but like Lonnie Anderson, Zachary Quinto. I mean, I've seen them do other stuff, and it seems like this wasn't a role they were best cast for.
Was it interesting to see Zachary in this kind of role?
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw him in this role, and I was very like, okay. This was before he got really famous. This was before Heroes.
Because see, he does
Star Trek.
See, he does stuff like Star Trek. He was a good Spock. He does. I don't know if this is good or bad about anybody, but he was really good in his roles in American Horror Story for as sick and twisted as some of those parts were. But this just, and I don't feel that way because I've seen him in the other roles, because I've seen people that can do, like Johnny Depp can do different things, and it's not a big deal. Or but it's like he's not suited for that, and it felt, I'm not going to say forced, but it was just not.
Okay. All right. Well, that is her gay best friend in the show. And then we have her two other friends from high school. And it's fun for them to talk about the high school parts because they have a little, she has flashbacks, a lot of her childhood that she'll then be like, I don't know, like, I don't know. And just the way she does it is very interesting. They had one where there's the Donna Martin graduates. They're like Donna Martin masturbates, and they're like getting in her face, and she's traumatized. It's so funny. I like that she picks fun at herself. Like most people, she's taken everything that people are saying about her, and go, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what you think. However, her mother's not portrayed in a very positive light. And I've heard stories, but I mean, I don't know how true any of them are. But, they had a thing or two about rocky relationships with your mother.
Oh yeah. So she may not have been too far off the mark.
She might not have been. I do know the gift wrapping room. I don't know if you remember seeing that. There was an actual gift wrapping room in the Spelling House. I don't got that kind of money, but I wish I did. But I do love how Aaron Spelling, her father, they talk about him. She only calls him daddy. You don't really hear her ever like them mention Aaron Spelling unless Candy or Kiki is saying Aaron. But I do like the aspects of his other shows they bring into it. Like when she drives up to the manor, it's playing like that dynasty theme.
Mm-hmm.
Or when she's talking to her dad, it's like doing just the voice, which is I loved it. I thought it was a great way to give a little homage to the great things that came before. But one of my standout performers is
James
the
Lott
dog.
Jr. joined.
And we have, I wasn't sure if he's going to make it, but he is here, James Lott Jr. Hello,
Hello.
Jr. You made it. I didn't think
My
you would.
computer decided it was going to do whatever F it wanted, and I was like, "No, you're going to let me on. I've been doing shows all day today. It's going to let me on."
I'm glad you could squeeze in some time with us.
Hello, queers. What's going on?
What's going on? Well, right now we are just talking about Tori Spellings, so noTORIous, which to me is a masterpiece.
I remember watching it on VH1 when it came out, and people don't realize Tori Spelling, after she did Trick, that movie Trick, that I saw in the theater when it came out. That's how old I am. People don't realize that she actually had, and she did House of Yes, and she did a supporting role in that. Like, she actually has a comedic timing.
Yes.
Like, beyond the Donna stuff and all that, like, she's really funny. And I have her books. I have all her books. I love, she's hilarious. Screw the talk, all the reality show and all that. That's crazy. But her acting, I was like, and so noTORIous was so funny.
Did you watch her she was in the short-lived show called The Help. She played like a dog walker for this rich family. It was all about the help, was the center of the show. It's 7 episodes on the WB. That's when I found out like how funny she was during that.
Yeah, I missed that. I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
I mean, I can't tell you what happened. I can't remember that much of it. I just know she's in it.
Well, I just thought that so noTORIous was supposedly, kind of her life a little bit, her crazy friends. I mean, it was just, I just remember it being such a funny show. So
it was. I love how Kiki, like, I know she's not supposed to be likable, but in a kind of interesting way she is. Like, she's quirky, but she's still fun.
Because she's not supposed to. I mean, that because we know why the character, which who she's portraying. Let's make sure we put it in quotations. Who she's supposed to be. Yeah, exactly. But it was hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious. Wait, wasn't this series also a series where her next door neighbor was Farrah Fawcett or something?
Yes, yes. I forgot when I was rewatching. I forgot that Farrah Fawcett popped up, and I went, "Oh my gosh, she had Farrah Fawcett on her show!" Like, I totally forgot.
Well, and the whole Aaron Spelling family. I was a huge Farrah Fawcett Majors fan when before you guys were born. When it was Charlie's Angels and the original 3, not the later ones. The original 3, they called it Jiggle TV and all that stuff. I remember watching that and loved it. And I love Farrah Fawcett, the hair, everything. I love it. I thought it was kind of funny because she was known at that time being a little eccentric by then. I'll just be polite that I would call it eccentric. And that's why I think being on this show is hilarious.
See, I got a little, like, if Violet from Saved by the Bell grew up, became famous, and had all that work done, I had throwbacks to that. Like, I love Tori Spelling on Saved by the Bell. I thought she was a great addition to that. I know a lot of people don't feel that way, but I do. Like, I find Tori Spelling extremely funny when it comes to, like.
I have no feeling either way on that one, but I think she's funny.
Yeah. So right now we have just been talking about the characters and just what we liked and kind of. John wasn't big on Lonnie Anderson. I know. I was like, well,
Legend Lonnie Anderson, really?
Wait. So you missed me just a couple minutes ago. I was talking about Zachary Quinto, and I said this. I feel like was is out of his element. It kind of he could have. Well, he's done better stuff, but I felt the same way about Lonnie Anderson because I've seen stuff she did years ago before this. She was in WKRP Cincinnati for however many, and that was a good show, and she was good at that. But this was a different kind of comedy, and I just don't. It's like she's done a bunch of other stuff for so long that this kind of humor wasn't really her either, if that makes sense.
No, here's what's funny that what John brings up is two people who are at two different parts of their careers. Zachary was not big yet. He was not. He had the Heroes had not come out. There was no Star Trek movies, and so he was. We first saw him in this basically. He's in a few other little things, but that's and he was like there was him. Lonnie Anderson, you mentioned, she's coming out from being that big star from the late 70s, early 80s, WKRP, and being a sex symbol and all that. So it's funny you say that because that basically they both were two parts of their careers, really, actually two parts of their careers, and it's very interesting observation.
Well, also she's playing a character that's really not supposed to have many emotions. I feel like she's very just. That's nice, Toto. Yeah, like I don't know if that's what Kiki really called or Candy Spelling really called her, but if not, if it is, I see why there's issues. No,
Like I said, I'm friends with Randy. We go way back. He's a life coach like I am. That's how I met him through life coaching world. I knew him from Sunset Beach and all those little things, but we really connected. He's a really nice guy. I mean, he has a great family and everything. He talks about Hollywood a lot and some of his just teachings. And that family had some issues apparently, as they were well documented. Yes.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of the Spellings. Doesn't matter what they do, acting, producing. I'm a fan. Aaron Spelling was one of my idols. So.
Well, he's one of mine too. No, he's one of mine too. He was one of mine too. I mean, clearly, I do 10,000 things like he did. I mean, that's what he was.
I think that's what I liked about him and Tori is the fact that they didn't really care what people were saying because they knew the fans loved it. So even if the critics didn't love it or the network didn't love it, they were just like, "This is what the fans want." So let's give it.
I believe so noTORIous thing. I think it was critically acclaimed. I think the critics did like it.
The critics did.
Yes. If I remember correctly, I'm going by memory because I watched it live. I have the DVD in my house somewhere too. I love it. But I was like, I believe they liked him, and like I said, Tori is much more than just her father, obviously. So she was trying to show them, but she went that reality route. I think it brought her down a little bit. Like, okay, there you go. But she was a person really trying to do acting, and she was. I mean, she was like trying, and she's self-deprecating. That's what this show is all about. That making fun of her because she always got her character. Her character always got into situations. That was the whole point. It was such a smart show in terms of put her in a weird situation, but put her in something that's kind of crazy, very Hollywood. It was very LA. The show's very LA. And I live in LA, folks. I can attest to that. Very Hollywood. Some shows you watch them, you can tell where they're from, like what they're like. Some shows are very New York, some shows are very Chicago.
This one's very. You can. I mean, it's because of the locations they went on, and they made sure it had that LA feel.
Yes, very much. And now you guys have been to LA a little bit. Did you feel? I mean, you and John feel like, I know, I can feel it a little bit now. That now can you watch?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I know I can. As I've been to LA 3 times.
Well, excuse me. Wow. Well, he's like
I'm fancy. I'm traveled.
Yes, but John, what about you?
I mean, I've been once, and it was recent, but yeah, I could see it. Yes. And we did watch some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I recognized some of the street names and stuff that they had where it showed the making of the show, and so, I mean, it was kind of nice to be able to relate to some of it since I'd been there.
With everything going digital, I kind of missed like the little special features they used to do because Tori was giving an interview how she was talking about how she had done some other pilots and things like that, but everyone couldn't get past Tori Spelling. Like when they tested her, all they saw was Tori Spelling, and I don't remember feeling that way. Like maybe it's just because, I mean, she's always going to be Donna Martin to me. That's just, she's stuck with that poor thing. Poor thing is never going to get rid of Donna Martin.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, it's when you have success. Clearly, there are folks who still look at me and go, "You're the guy from Dishin' Days and AfterBuzz TV." I'm like, I ain't done that show in like 10,000 years. Like, why? I've moved on from that. I've done 100,000 things since that. But there's certain, or you're the guy that does the bread thing on TikTok. I mean, I'm the bread refrigerator guy. Like, there's certain things that when you become big in something, it's a blessing and a curse, right? It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And I know with Tori, she had to overcome, first of all, being her father's daughter. So in Hollywood, they claim, I use all in air quotes, allegedly, they don't like nepotism, yet it happens all the time.
That's what I liked in the show is anytime he'd be like, don't you want me just to give you a show? Don't you think they need a fourth witch on Charmed?
But wasn't it cool they never showed him?
Yes.
I was like that.
I loved how they did the Charlie's Angel type thing, and still, like, I don't know, I felt Aaron's presence. Like, I remember seeing him in interviews, and I just get that feeling that's kind of what he was like. It was just very. I loved when they did the 90210, like when she was reading for the part. They had some fake name. It was like something, but it was like, "You did wonderful, girl. You got the part." And she's like, "Yeah."
Yes, it's so. I mean, there was so many inside jokes in there that just, I think if you didn't know Hollywood or weren't a fan of hers, you may have not gotten. But those of us who kind of knew, they were funny. They were really clever. And I thought, it's a shame in real life. I think they've reconciled a little bit. I guess I'm not sure what the whole story is. I think so too. But it was for a while they just weren't. They were not.
And I always wondered if this show had a part to do with it.
Maybe.
Because this was before like TV was doing this kind of comedy all the time. Like this was before James Vanderbeek did Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment.
Love that. I have that show on DVD. I love it.
And he played a heightened version of himself, and I loved it because it was fun. I love when celebrities make fun of themselves.
Yes, and it shows they have a sense of humor.
And Tori Spelling had a lot to work with because she got poor child. It was, well, you're Aaron Spelling's daughter,
or you're not good looking.
Yeah,
or you're Donna Martin. I mean, she got a lot of stuff, and I just thought that's but part of it is that's part of it, and she decided not to run from it. She decided to stick it out and take smaller parts that actually smaller but juicier, meaty parts. And that's one way to do it. As her agent was, or whoever it was doing, that was a smart thing to do. And then these books, storytelling with noTORIous and all these things. I love them. The books are really entertaining. Mommy Wood, all those books, they're hilarious. They're hilarious takes on life. And I think people should read it. They're really good. I don't think I read her last book. I think it was a cookbook or something like that. I didn't do all that. But her stories about Hollywood were a lot of fun. And because she's not a dumb girl, folks. She's a smart woman.
I get that feeling. She's a smart cookie, but she plays that part well.
She reminded me because I'm a huge Pam Anderson fan.
I love Pamela Anderson. Did you watch Stripperella?
Of course. Okay, so I know Pam Anderson actually. I met her sometimes over the years. I know, but I call her Pammy Kins. So I loved VIP. I loved Barbed Wire. I loved her show Stacked. There was a little sitcom she did.
Yes, that was so. Oh, yes.
No, I'm a huge Pammy Kins fan. So, but I feel like she's another one of those. Got big on Baywatch. The sex tape, all that stuff. Well, he was big, and she handled it on tape. And then I just watched the Pam and Tommy on Hulu, and I know one of the actresses who is in it. And I watched it; it was pretty good. But I was just like, she's a smart girl too. Like they look at people like them, they're blonde, they're this, they got advantages, whatever. But they actually have some talent. It's just covered in other stuff. Tori is talented. I think Tori is talented. In the right vehicle, she is talented.
Yeah, I mean, when we first watched 90210, Donna Martin isn't a big part, But as it goes on, she steals those scenes. Like I don't know anyone else that could sit in a Little Mermaid outfit and still that's be one of my favorite parts of the episode is just her fidgeting around in her little outfit or that dress when she sets, and it's the big hoop.
Did John? Did you watch 90210? You watch that?
He's actually a fan.
Oh, you're a fan.
Mm-hmm. I was shocked.
Well, I would never imagine that you'd be a fan.
I mean, I ain't seen every episode or nothing like that, but I've watched quite a bit of it.
The fact that you watched it makes me proud.
I sound like whatever. John, I love your expressions all the time. You just make me smile.
I know. He's my Mimi LaRue.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he is. Yes. His expressions are just like priceless.
That was one of my favorite things is her with her dog, Mimi LaRue.
I know.
It was so cute and just very me, and I think that's why I just loved it.
Well, I have my little Scrabble for years, may he rest in peace. So I understand. It's always a soft spot for small dogs, so I do always.
I know if I was rich, both my dogs would be dressed like Mimi LaRue.
I always dressed my dog all the time. My dog always had outfits. When we were watching football, my Scrabble had a jersey on, just like I did. I always dressed him. I just didn't have him in a purse walking around. I didn't do all that. But I did. When he did get dressed, people were like, he's always dressed. I'm like, yeah, because he'd be naked. But he's a dog. I'm like, no, he's naked.
Sophia's getting to wear like long walks she can't do. I was like, maybe I should buy a stroller.
Oh my god!
Like I really considered it.
You see that in LA? In LA, it's a huge thing.
Oh,
that they have strollers for their dogs. See, I'm not doing all that.
Oh, see, I'm that extra.
You're that extra. Well, you can be that extra. That's fine. I would do that.
So I'm curious, why do you think this show didn't last?
I think part of it was VH1.
Okay,
whatever was going on with them at the time. Secondly, she just didn't have. I think it was ahead of its time a little bit. They just didn't. It just didn't have the support. I think if it was on streaming today, it'd be a hit.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it was on Hulu or Paramount or one of those things plus, because that's be a little different. VH1 was starting to go into this territory before Basketball Wives and all that other stuff that came out later. So they were just trying to come into this territory. And VH1 was mostly for old folks who couldn't watch MTV anymore. And Tori is somewhere in between that. She wasn't like considered like, she wasn't, but she is she's Gen X like I am, but kind of like, it was like part of your generation liked it, part of my generation liked it. It was like she was weird, but she was in between somewhere. And I think I just couldn't find the audience. And VH1's about ratings.
My mom and I watched it together, but she's part of that. Like now, that's part of her. Just
right.
Time.
I'm sure Mother and I are probably the same age. Mother and I are the same age. I'm sure.
Well, I won't disclose my mother's information.
Don't tell Mother's age. But I'm assuming she and I are the same generation. I'm assuming.
But I do wish Tori would get a little more into comedy. I know they tried with that Mystery Girls. Yeah. I just don't think that was the right fit for her and Jenny Garth.
Yeah, it's funny because I enjoyed the 90210 reboot thing where they were trying to get together. I loved it. My brother and I we just were gagging over it. We loved it. I'm sad it was only one season. I wish there was a little more than that. We thought it was a clever idea. Yeah, I know. And the Mystery Girls, there were some funny moments, kind of, but it just didn't hit. But I think streaming is a little better because on network, they're looking at ratings. On network, looking at shares. At least if she's on a subscription service, it might be a little easier to last a little longer, get more time. If she was on Amazon Prime, might be a little different. I just think that it was also placement. It was like not just her, but also where it was placed.
Do agree. Is there anything else you had to add about it?
Well, I will say when I watch stuff, I am kind of big on continuity because I'll watch something and I will pick it apart down to the atoms. So I kind of liked the Donna Martin stuff. Like there was one really quick scene where they had her actually as Donna Martin, like the hair doing everything. And they had a doll at one point. They had a doll they were messing around with.
Yes.
As I was telling him, I said, I just remembered the Canadian episode where I think it was you said it wasn't shown in the
It
US.
wasn't showed in the U.S. until it was showed on Logo.
I
a few years later.
actually in 2006 I lived in Canada.
Oh,
And I remembered that all of a sudden we're watching this. So the guy that had like the heavy French accent, that's not what they sound like. And the other people, that's not what they sound like. And I actually coincidentally also knew a couple of people up there that were Persian. Not they didn't identify as Iranian; they identified as Persian. They didn't sound like the people in the show that were portraying Persian people. And that one woman, she was from Christmas Vacation. She was the boss's wife that come with the nightie on, and that woman's not even. She's white as I am. So I mean, there's things like that I will take and I will fixate on it, and it kind of keeps me in a way from enjoying it as much. So
He's really into realism. Me, not so much.
Yeah, I'm like, I demand it in some things. Other things, I'm like, okay, you know.
So,
But I know what you mean. No, I said no. Some things I agree with you, John. Some things I'm like, I need it to be a certain way. And portrayals, the representation does matter. That does happen. But in other things, I'm like, it's whimsical. It's crazy anyway. The show is like, not Shakespeare. So I guess I can.
I know. I guess I should have gave him a warning, John. This show is nowhere near real.
But there's a funny. So speaking of queers and soaps, my poor followers on Sunday watched me fall apart live on television on YNR. When we were recapping the show, me and Amanda both. I just fell apart because it triggered some stuff in my life. And I was saying, people's soap operas, they say they're not real, they're not this, they're not that. But sometimes they are, when they do things right, they are realistic. Sometimes they do capture real moments. And I was completely touched by it. I was by some of the moments and the performances. So, like John, I watch, I talk about soaps every week, obviously, on my shows. I'm always kind of watching the line between realism representation plus whimsy and letting that go. It's like I go back and forth. So in some ways, I understand what you're saying. That I go back and forth. And like this particular week, it was a stellar week soap opera. It was a stellar week in acting. And then the next week, you see something, you're like, what the F? Like, what are they doing? Like, it's, it's I don't know. So I'm learning to go back and forth sometimes. And yeah, that's kind of
that's why that's the only soap opera I ever did watch. When I watched it mostly with my grandmother that watched it for eons, was The Young and the Restless. Because a lot of that stuff in there is real. It's relatable. It's not over the top. And but what happened?
Oh, they killed Ray Rosales, who was Sharon's husband.
Oh.
And so, but it was Victoria, Ray, and Ashlyn Locke all got into a car accident. It was a 3-car pileup. And for me, we were shocked. But the scenes that got me and Amanda, my co-host, afterwards were the next day when Sharon is with her whole family, with Nick in the background, kind of, and the kids, and she has to call Ray's mother, tell me he had died. And I had done it for my own mother. I had died a call when my brother died 6 years ago. Like, so it really affected me. So I'm like crying on time. I couldn't get through Sundays. I couldn't do our recap. But they killed. But it was the aftermath. Because it seemed so. The beats they were playing seemed so real. Like in a real. I went through it personally myself. So I'm like, it was like that's real. They got it right. They actually got it right. It's sad that Ray's killed, but
I know.
like it's. I won't know thoughts on that, but that's another story. But they played it out in a way that was realistic, and so I think everybody agreed. Even in the chat room, online, it was well done. Like, there's like an Emmy nomination. Like, everybody get ready for their Emmys next year. Like, everyone performed from supporting player to lead actor to Victor Newman and Nick to everybody. They all performed really well.
Well, see, they do. That sure does do a lot of good stuff like that. Because you probably remember back in this was earlier 2000s. Victor was dating the woman that was from Paris, and she ended up being killed in an auto accident. And Nikki was having the nightmares. That scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I was grown.
Is anyone getting turned on with John's soap sex? Like,
oh, I'm turned on by John anyway. I mean, I'm
like talking about soaps.
I'm like, but yes, I'm turned on even more. So, but luckily he's next to you, so you can take care of that later.
Well, I
But
remember,
no, but that's
we're
I
talking
remember
about
that.
Young and the Restless, though. My moment when Cassie died, I
Well,
was
that's
glued to the TV,
I
and I
brought that
wasn't
up
a
on the
loyal
show.
viewer. I was
I
not a
broke
loyal
I,
viewer.
I brought that up because I said these are the same actors, Sharon Case, and it's the same actress. When Cassie died to this years later, and she both times I said she performed so realistically, and Josh Romero who plays Nick both times. It's like the same actors all these years later. And I was just like, it's funny you said that, Aaron. I brought that up. I go, these are the same folks who, when Cassie died, and how sad that they don't kill kids normally. They don't normally kill
No,
kids.
yeah, that's normally like a no. Like it's like no, we don't do that. We don't do that. But they're just like,
They
yeah,
did. They did.
and
Now she's
and
like this. Right.
that was like that storyline. I don't know why we watched. I don't know if we were watching it full time or what, but I remember watching that and just being heartbroken, seeing Sharon, like just that mother losing her child. Oh,
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine. But now she has her lesbian daughter. She has Mariah.
I know.
She loves Mariah.
At least they
Mariah.
still have a little representation on the show.
They do. They do. And this fan, that fandom is like they're. And hi, Mariah fans who are watching this. They love me, and I can always support them. I'm one of the few folks who does interviews with them together, the actors together. 55,000 views on one video, and 12,000 on another. Because no one else is doing it. It's only me.
I
And
know
so
they're a popular couple. I've always liked. What's the actress name that played Cassie? I don't know her character's
her name is Cameron Grimes.
Okay, I love her.
Yes.
And I'm not even a loyal viewer. I think there's something about her I really like. If I watched it, she would be probably the one I was rooting for.
She has also come out this last year as bi. So she is part of the now she's part of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Love it. We're all about that representation.
Matt Kreider says, what's interesting is that Young and Restless is the only soap I can't watch. I love what you do, but I do not watch soaps for reality. Oh wow, okay.
I think there's a mix of those people that some want the reality, some don't. I mean, when we have a crazy like possession storyline, I still like to have something that's a little more realistic.
I'm so over that possession. Don't get me started.
Yeah,
I mean, you're a devil, and you're a devil, and you're a devil.
Everyone's a devil. It's like Oprah is giving out devils. So
I'm done.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you guys, so Matt, you must like Passions and all those shows that are just like, we are crazy. James E. Riley loved it. I love those shows. But I'm saying I do like when they do topics, because here's what it is, kids out there. You know, we are on Queers and Soaps. We're on a show that's called Queers and Soaps, and some of these soaps, it's the first place for people to see something other than themselves. Situations they never go through. People they never see in person, and we get a chance to influence and at least give somebody something to look at they may not even think about. Whether it's so sometimes real storylines are great because they shine a light on a subject that folks, especially when it comes to gay and lesbian or people of color, I think we need those sometimes.
Well,
so I think
it's so notorious. In this was 2006. We had gay character who was Iranian American.
Iranian.
At a time when it probably,
This is before Shaw's of Sunset, folks. This is before what's his name? Reza or whatever his name is. It's before all that. This is Shaw's before all that.
I feel like Tori's always been a big supporter of the LGBT community.
She's
so I think that was a great put that character in there, because that's not that's not the type of gay character we're used to seeing on television. Typically at that time it would have been Will, Jack, or the fellas at Queers and
Well, actually, no, we didn't even have that back then. Not in 2006. There were no gay characters on 2006. There were no gay characters on soaps.
Oh, no, well, I'm talking about like not on soaps. I'm just talking about like just on television in general.
Well, here we hardly had anything. That's the whole point, is that luckily we had her do this on this show. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. Like, they did this. We had Will and Grace, but it was getting tired by then. But other than that, there was nothing else. There was just nothing else. We had no representation whatsoever. It was completely like we started getting it in the 90s, and then all of a sudden it was like, that's it. And it
Well,
wasn't
and
until
if we did, it was the stereotypes. Like John and I've talked about that. He never sees like gay characters like himself on television.
you know
They're
what's funny
always
when I look at John, there's a character I loved, and he to me is the best written gay character ever on television, and that was on Happy Endings. Max to me was the best gay character on ever on television
yes. You
because
would
he was like, yeah, you would like to because he wasn't because that was the whole point. He was a dude who just happened to like dudes.
he
That was
was
the
a
thing.
sloppy, didn't care about much of how he looked or anything. He would just get out of bed and be like, "What's up?"
Well,
I'm
his
Matt.
best friend, who was black, who played by Darren Wayans Jr., he
Mhm.
was more prissy than him. He was straight. That was always the joke, right? That was always kind of the joke, is that they were best friends, but the straight guys were more prissy than him. He was like a regular guy. He was just like a guy who liked sports. He liked this. He liked that. He liked food. He liked dudes. And I thought that was one of the most clever, well written, happy endings. Bring it back, folks. 3 seasons. I'm pissed.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm so glad to know you're a fan of that. I'm a Penny. I've always related
Oh,
to
I can
Penny.
see that. I can totally see that. I tell you, I think I'm not quite a Jane. I'm there a little bit, kind of. I'll just say that kind of.
I could see a mix of Jane and of her husband. Oh, what was
And Brad,
Brad? I could see
yes,
you the Jane Brad combo.
I'm kind of a mixture. Thomas
Yeah.
is in the hi Thomas, and then Matt says he likes Santa Barbara. I love Santa Barbara. That was my show. Passion's got 2 over the top for him. There you go. And he said if a gay character was on TV, he was a villain or killed off. What's funny is when I was coming up, any gay character came on, they were tragic. So he's right. They had AIDS, they got killed, they got gay bashed. It wasn't until my so-called life when we saw Wilson Cruz come on as Ricky, I was like, wow, he's actually just this gay guy in high school. He's a person of color like I am. Like this is great. I just wasn't ready for that. It wasn't he was groundbreaking. It was a groundbreaking
Definitely. I can't think of because at my time, Matt from Melrose Place, but they didn't like you would have never known he was gay unless they said it in the script because he didn't really date.
Oh, Matt.
Oh, Matt, right?
Oh, Matt. And it was not Matt's fault, obviously. It was the producers, it was the time period. I was like, all the gays, we're doing Melrose Mondays at my house every Monday. Yet you don't want to have a gay character be fully gay. So, and that was time period with Roseanne, same thing. Always they wouldn't let her. I mean, that was not that long ago, you guys. It was not that long ago. That's what's so scary. It was not that long ago. And it was for us who were trying to find something. I didn't see anybody black and gay. I never saw that on TV. You know, not until Noah's Ark or whatever later. I mean, other than that, I never saw that. That wasn't even a. We had RuPaul for a while going out there doing her thing in the '90s.
Which
but
was
that
on. She had a show on VH1, and my mom, I think, watched it a little bit. I was like, "You watched RuPaul?" I was so shocked.
RuPaul was actually a very groundbreaking, cross the board success. I mean, I know a lot of straight people who liked RuPaul back then in the '90s, and my mom loved her too. Had her book. I got her the doll. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, she was all into it. She was. I mean, RuPaul is amazing. I mean, what she's doing now, 30 years later, I'm just like, I remember I met her.
James Lott Jr. joined.
What happened, James?
I don't know. I'm sitting right here. Where'd I go? Where am I? Where'd I go? That's it. You heard me. Sorry, Rue. I was just saying nice things. I swear I was saying nice things about you. There was Jack on Dawson's Creek. There was Tara and Willow. But again, you're right. That was the 2000s. It came later. For a while, they cut it off. But that was in the 2000s. And what they do also, they killed Tara.
They did.
That was my only thing. I was like, really, you guys? Really? That's the only thing that made me. So they made Dark Willow and all that. Don't get me started. Buffy was my favorite show all the time. Don't get me started on Buffy. Don't get me started on Buffy. But that's another story.
I love how our whole little so notorious. Like that's what this
Lives
show. When I'm a part of this show, it's tantrums. We go off.
I ran all the time. So my fans said I ran all the time. I get more views when I ran. When I'm nice, no one cares.
I know Tommy's normally the one that keeps me on track, I guess.
Sorry, Tommy, where we are. I'm throwing him off the rails. I'm just coming on here doing whatever we were talking about, whatever we want.
I love it. I love it. I love that we're able to do that.
Yes.
About representation.
Well, the thing is, again, what you guys are doing is, it's very brave what you guys are doing, having the name and being out there. We've talked about this before, and it's what drew me to you guys when I first heard. I was like, queer. I'm like, what's going on? And it's a name that for me was a bad thing. It was not a good thing until years later. We decided to embrace it. So what you guys are doing is great. That you're even just coming on to YouTube and having a title out there. It's like that's a big deal. That's representation, and there's a whole community who believes in the word queer and everything.
Remember back in the day when you had your remote and there was where you could have it set to where you could switch back and forth between one channel? That's how I watched Queers as Folk. I would have my finger on that as I was watching it, and then if I thought someone was coming, choop, right up, because I didn't want anyone to know, because the title alone would have given it away.
That's so funny. I remember when that came out.
Poor little Aaron.
Well, it's funny because I watched the British version first, and that was when it first came out. I was a huge fan. That soundtrack was played. I was in my when that came out, I was in my late 20s, and I remember I was still bouncy, going to the clubs, thinking I was all hot shit or whatever.
I bet you were.
I was working it out. I was trying to work it out in San Francisco, and I was very popular. But that soundtrack was a big thing. It was a whole big thing. So when they said to do an American version, and I'm from Pittsburgh, I was like, you're going to use Pittsburgh? Liberty Avenue? Sorry, folks. Liberty Avenue in Pittsburgh didn't look like that in real life. Clearly, it was a fictionalized version. There was a gay club on there called Pegasus. A few of them on there on Liberty back in the day. But it was not like this. But I remember just saying queer. It was such a big deal. It was and these are the folks who did Sisters. I love Sisters. That's one other show I loved. I was like, it's actually, I knew they were gay creators, but they actually are going to adapt this for Americans. It's not going to work. Oh no one's going to want that. But see, it was cable. Cable, you could do stuff. So I think that worked. They're not bringing it back, and so I'm very curious to see what that looks like now. I don't know. It's not meant for my generation, clearly. It's going to be all these young kids, but I'll watch it and see what's going on.
I'm interested to see how they portray this newer generation. I'm interested to see it.
It was very sexual, the originals, both of them, the British and the American. Very sexual, very fueled, I should say.
Well, and it's set in New Orleans, so that's a very sexual
area.
Yes. I've been there twice, and each time I've been there, I was like, ooh, like clutching my pearls. I was shocked at what I was saying.
Yeah, I've done a few things for beads in New Orleans. But that's another story. For another time.
It's the After Dark show.
It's Queer Soaps After Dark. Yeah, soap was involved too. But I'm really curious. But like shows like Love, Simon, I love that show. I've loved both seasons of it. It's not meant for me. It's for young people. But I really enjoy the leads. I enjoy the story. And because I love the movie. The movie was really good. Love the other movie. But the series, I really like it. And so I'm watching this queer stuff happen for the young kids. I know this Generation Z is very different than the rest of us. They don't care as much about genders and stuff. It's a whole. So I'm really curious to see how this Queer as Folk happens, how it'll play out. Because
I am too. I'm ready to see some Facebook statuses from people I know saying I'm getting rid of Peacock because of all of that. I have a friend who they were looking for options outside of Disney, the Disney Channel, because the agenda was getting too strong. And the show they were talking about was like, it's a show about dinosaurs. I don't get it.
Well, Hallmark's going through that right now. Hallmark Channel, they had a lesbian movie, and now folks are leaving, going to GAC. So I'm dealing with that right now with some stuff that I work with, and I'm like, it is. We still got a long way to go, kids. We got a long way to go.
A long way.
We have a
So.
long way to go.
Well, we're going to do our part to make sure queer content keeps coming.
I'm gonna do my part too, so I'm gonna
No.
continue doing my part to
It's going to
have
be like
this
Captain America. We're all going to be a color and just pull our powers together and unite.
Well,
Sorry,
at least we can. At least we can on content. I challenge the gay community to come together. Period. In real life, that's another
Oh,
story.
yeah. That's a whole nother hurdle.
Yeah, it is. But at least on content wise, we're out there. We're out there. But I'm like, we really need in the real life some community happening.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot happening out there, folks. They don't want us. They want to erase us. They do, and we can't allow them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get too political or anything, but
Yeah.
it's like we have to watch out. It's like the fight, the things I was protesting, literally protesting 30 years ago, are still happening today in some
I
places.
know it's we were watching Knox Landing one night, and these characters were talking about climate change and things like that. I was like, we're still covering this. Like we gotta do something. Like, come on.
I know, but it's just laws, folks. They're trying to pass laws and things that can affect your TV also, and your TV watching, and your movies and your books. They're burning books.
We in the South, we know.
Yes, you know. But we know here. But I'm just saying we're aware of it here in LA too, and it could happen here too. I mean, it's like not that far. It could happen anywhere. You think it's happening somewhere else? We have to support the arts, and that includes the arts of queer people also, and queer and content creators. We can't let this. We can't let up. Sorry.
Well, James, thank you so much for coming on to talk about a little bit of everything.
I guess we did. I know we just came in and hijacked the show. We just talked about all kind of stuff, but
yeah, hijack it. We love it when you come visit. You'll have to come more often and come back when Tommy's back.
Yeah, Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy.
The role of Thomas Figueroa is being played by James Law Jr.
That's an interesting casting choice.
I think it is. It's something a little different.
I don't know that John's feeling it because it's not real.
It's not real. Oh my god! It's shade. I love it. I love shade. It's always cooler in the shade.
It is.
But I love you both, and so it's a big love fest here. So.
Well, thank you, and be sure to follow us on all the socials, Queers and Soaps, and James Lott Jr. He has tons of content for you to listen to and watch, so be sure to check that out because he's hilarious. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.